You kneel down beside the wilting tomato plant, your fingers brushing the soil, and you murmur something you'd never say out loud to another human being. The old gardener across the street, the one with the rose bushes that bloom twice as long as yours, he doesn't whisper to his plants. He ignores them for 60 days straight. No planting, no watering, no fertilizer. Then he returns, and the soil yields a harvest that makes the neighbors drive by slowly with their windows down, just to catch a whiff of the earth. You want to know how that works. So here is the first crack in everything you think you know about gardening. You believe that a plant needs constant attention, that the soil must be turned, fed, and watered on a strict schedule. Sue James believed the opposite. At 70 years old, after 4 decades of trial and error, he stopped doing everything the manual said and started doing nothing at all. Not laziness, but a calculated discipline. The ESALQ USP study from 2019 measured something strange in soils left completely undisturbed for 8 weeks. Microbial biomass increased by 40%. Earthworm populations tripled. The pH didn't crash or spike. It stabilized. That number alone should stop you cold. 40% more microbial life without a single drop of fertilizer. If that surprised you, imagine what else the science is still hiding from the weekend gardeners. Subscribe to uncover the rest of what the old gardener knows that the manuals refuse to print. And leave the word silence in the comments if you have ever let a bed rest for more than a month and seen what happens when you finally come back. But here is the trap. If you just stop planting and walk away, thinking the soil will heal itself, you invite the weeds. You invite compaction. The old gardener doesn't just abandon the plot. He prepares it for the silence. Before those 60 days, he applies a thick layer of mulched coffee grounds and crushed eggshells, not thrown on top, but worked into the top 2 inches with a trowel. This is the difference between a fallow field that turns to dust and a dormant garden that grows stronger in the dark. You need to understand what the coffee grounds do during that 60-day stillness. Most people think grounds acidify the soil. The study from ESALQ proved the opposite. After 8 days of contact with undisturbed soil, the pH of the ground shifted from 5.5 to 6.8. The acids neutralized. Meanwhile, the grounds released nitrogen at a slow, steady rate that mimicked a timed release fertilizer. No burning of the roots, no chemical spikes. Just a quiet feeding that happened while the gardener did nothing. The eggshells, crushed to a powder that feels like fine sand between your fingers, contribute calcium in a way that whole shells never could. The UFV decomposition table shows that whole eggshells take 6 months to break down. Powdered shells release their calcium within 24 hours. When you bury that powder with the coffee grounds before the 60-day rest, the calcium binds with the nitrogen to form stable organic compounds. The soil chemistry balances itself without you lifting a trowel again. You might be sitting there thinking, this sounds like a lot of prep work just to do nothing. And you are right. It is. But the preparation is the point. The old gardener spends one afternoon mixing his grounds and shells, laying down a layer of black and white newspaper over the bed, then wetting it until it clings to the soil like a second skin. The CETES-B report from 2012 showed that colored newspaper ink contains heavy metals. Black and white ink is clean. That is why he only used the classified ads section. That level of detail is the difference between a garden that survives 60 days and one that starves. But what if you have already made the mistake? What if you buried whole banana peels last week and now the ants have declared war on your raised bed? Do not panic. The old gardener has a fix for that too. You pull the peels out, cut them into 1-inch strips, and freeze them overnight. Freezing breaks the cell walls and releases the potassium without the rotting sugar that attracts the insects. Then you mix those frozen strips with the dried coffee grounds and bury the combination shallow, no deeper than 2 inches. The ants lose interest. The soil gains potassium at 42% concentration. The smell of fermentation disappears within 2 days. Now imagine walking out to your garden on day 61. You haven't touched that bed in 2 months. The newspaper has mostly decomposed, though a few shreds still cling to the surface. You peel them back, and the soil underneath is dark, almost black, with a crumbly texture that releases a scent of wet earth and something sweet like crushed leaves after a rain. You sink your fingers in and feel the moisture held deep, not pooled on top. The earthworms you saw in the preparation block are still there, moving through the coffee grounds, leaving their castings behind. This is the moment the old gardener says most people miss. They see the dark soil and they want to plant immediately. He waits 1 more week, 7 more days of doing nothing. He waters once, a deep soak, then lets the soil settle. When he finally does plant, the seedlings don't wilt. They don't curl. They stand upright within hours, as if they had been waiting for permission. The UFV study documented that transplanted seedlings in rested soil with organic amendments showed a 60% higher survival rate compared to continuously cultivated plots. That is not logic defied. That is logic ignored by modern gardening. You are now standing at the crossroads where the old gardener's discipline meets the university's evidence. If you want to be part of the small group that actually applies this, not just watches it, subscribe so you don't miss the exact step-by-step that turns a failed bed into a soil bank. And in the comments, type rested if you are ready to test that extra week of silence on your own plot. You still with me? Good, because here's where it gets personal. If you have ever watched a seedling that you babied for weeks turn yellow and droop, despite your daily watering, you know the frustration of feeling like the garden just hates you. That seedling did not hate you. The soil was exhausted. You were feeding the plant, but the soil had nothing left to give. The 60-day rest is not about the plant. It is about the medium that the plant depends on. The soil is the engine. The plant is just the dashboard light. Some people hear that and think it is too much work to plan a 2-month rest. You are not that person. You already know the difference between a garden that survives on synthetic stimulants and one that thrives on a cycle of preparation, stillness, and return. The old gardener did not guess his way into this. He tested it on 70 plots over 10 years. He compared rested beds with continuously planted ones. The rested beds consistently produced higher yields by the 3rd season, not by luck, by chemistry. And here comes the warning that the YouTube thumbnails never show you. The 60-day rest does not work if your soil is already compacted or if you skip the mulched amendments. The grounds and the shells are non-negotiable. Without them, the microbial activity drops by day 30. The earthworms migrate away. The soil turns hydrophobic, meaning water runs off the surface instead of soaking in. You cannot just leave bare dirt alone and expect magic. The preparation is the mechanism. Skip it, and you will return to a dusty patch that looks worse than when you started. But when you do it right, when you measure out your dried coffee grounds from the week of morning filters, when you crush those eggshells until they disappear between your fingers, when you lay that damp newspaper and walk away for 60 days, you return to soil that smells alive. The microbes that were dormant when you started have multiplied. The pH sits at 6.5, right in the sweet spot for tomatoes and roses. The earthworms have pulled the organic matter down into the deeper layers, aerating without a tiller. You did not defy logic. You worked with a cycle that modern convenience has made invisible. Now imagine your garden 3 days after that. Rest ends. The first leaves appear, darker and thicker than any seedling you have grown before. The stem feels stiff, almost woody, under your fingertip. The soil does not dry out between waterings the way it used to. The neighbor who always wins the gardening competition walks past your gate and stops. He does not say anything. He just stares at the bed and then at you. You do not need to explain the 60 days of nothing. The evidence is in the green. You water once and walk away. The soil remembers what you gave it. Agora, that you know what even the soil scientists sometimes overlook. Look at your wilted tomato plant. Tomorrow morning, before the sun climbs high, collect the coffee grounds from your filter. Crush 2 eggshells to powder. Mix them with the grounds and work them into the top 2 inches of a bed you are willing to leave alone for 2 months. Cover it with a single layer of newspaper, soaked until it sticks. Then walk away. Set a reminder for day 61. Come back and tell me what you find. The secret of the 70-year-old gardener is not magic. It is giving the soil exactly what it needs, then trusting it to work without you. You have the recipe, the timing, and the research. Now the only thing left is to decide if you will actually do it. If you are ready to become the gardener whose soil works while you rest, subscribe, because the next video will show you exactly how to layer these amendments for every season. And in the comments, write, "I trust the soil," as your commitment to that 61st day. In the next video, we go deeper into what happens when you combine coffee grounds with banana peel strips and a specific kitchen waste that most people rinse down the drain. The result will change how you think about your morning compost forever. Walk out to that bed one last time as the evening light slants across the soil. You do not have to dig or test, even water. You just crouch down, press your palm flat against the surface, and feel the warmth radiating up from the stillness beneath. The promise you made to yourself 60 days ago is now held in the dark, crumbly earth that clings to your skin. The old gardener across the street owns no secret book, no patented formula, no hidden watering schedule that the agronomists missed. He owns only the patience to let the soil remember what it was born to do. That patience is yours now. You do not need to whisper to the plants. You just need to trust what you have already done and let the stem prove it. You rise, brush the dark crumbs from your palm, and walk back toward the house without looking over your shoulder. The bed does not need your eyes on it every hour. The coffee grounds are digesting, the calcium is binding, the earthworms are tunneling through the silence you created. In 3 days, the first true leaf will uncurl. In 2 weeks, the stem will double in thickness. By the end of the season, the neighbor who once drove past slowly will park his car and walk up to your gate with a question he has never asked anyone before. You already know the answer. You will tell him it takes 60 days of doing nothing and 1 afternoon of doing everything right. That is the whole secret. That is the only secret there ever was.